Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at an article from USA Today, which is talking about a new poll that I guess was also done by USA Today, that states that about a year after the January 6th insurrection slash riot slash protest, whatever you want to call it, that happened at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. by Trump supporters, that apparently by overwhelming margins, according to this article, Americans are seeing the nation's democracy as basically being in jeopardy, as being not as strong as it was even just 5 or 4 years ago, and more or less just kind of highlighting a very grim outlook on the country that a lot of Americans have right now. Obviously, the United States has been going through a lot of pretty big crises recently. I mean, the US obviously was not untouched by the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic collapse that the world pretty much saw. And even though America is doing a lot better than it was during, I guess, the beginning of the pandemic in terms of like economic output and stuff like that, there's still a lot of cause for concern for most Americans. So Americans, by overwhelming margins, see the nation's democracy as in peril, a new USA Today / Suffolk University poll finds, but that chilling consensus is based on starkly conflicting assessments of the assault on the US Capitol 1 year ago. The clash over what happened and why last January 6th underscores how unsettled the political landscape remains, even as prayer vigils and news conferences commemorate the anniversary of the violent protest that failed to prevent the official certification of the 2020 presidential election. Across partisan lines, more than 8 in 10 Republicans, Democrats, and independents say that they are worried about the future of America's democracy. They disagree on whether the January 6th mob represented an effort to undermine democracy or to fix it. 85% of Democrats call the rioters, quote, criminals. 2/3 of Republicans say, quote, they went too far, but they had a point. In this, 51% of 1,000 registered voters said that they were very worried about the future of America's democracy, while 32% said that they were somewhat worried. Only 8% said they're not very worried, and 7% said not at all worried. So obviously the responses are starkly different there. Keep in mind, this is only a poll of 1,000 people, but even then a poll of 1,000 people is still, it's a pretty decent sample size. But it's not like, they went and interviewed 3 million people or anything crazy like that. But even then, the responses were still marked and everything. And I feel like this is kind of a popular sentiment that a lot of people here in the United States are currently having. I feel like a lot of Americans are very worried for the outcome of this country. And based on a lot of the things that have been happening, this specifically states January 6th as one of the, if not the only primary example based on what people were responding with. But I don't really think that that's a fair enough assessment, right? That's a very politicized event, first and foremost, and then second off as well. There's been so many other things that have kind of happened that I think can really, deter people in their, opinions on American democracy. One of those being the rumors of Russian interference in our elections. I think another massive one is the constant mistrust in the mainstream media, which is honestly very valid to begin with, but a majority of Republicans, 58%, say Joe Biden wasn't legitimately elected to the White House, even though audits and investigations in a half dozen states debunked former President Donald Trump's claims of voter fraud. Quote, he created doubt when there is no doubt, said Candace Walters, 44, a ticket broker from Bountiful, Utah, who was called in the poll. That is really the risk to democracy, is the fact that no one's ever going to believe anything ever again. There are certain people that will never trust another election for as long as they live. They'll always feel like they were wronged or scammed or whatever. Now, I do agree with part of this here. I do think that from now on, pretty much every single American election is going to be contested. I mean, after Donald Trump came out and said that the 2020 presidential election that he lost was fraudulent, I think that regardless now, this is going to be the new norm. I mean, the next time a Republican wins the presidential election, I feel like you're going to have Democrats coming out and saying, oh, they cheated, or even if they're using the logic in bad faith and just only saying that, the election was fraudulent because they're trying to mock Republicans for doing this or whatever. I feel like this is still going to be a very constant thing. No matter what side wins, the other side now is going to cry, they're going to complain, they're going to say that it was rigged, that the election was fraudulent. I feel like this constant contesting of the election is going to be kind of a long-term thing now, and this is going to be something I think that really does hurt democracy, because you have such a huge portion of the American population that now believes that even the most, sacred election in the entire country, the presidential election, can be manipulated and fraudulized, or whatever you want to say. But I really think that there's more to the issue at hand still. I think that this article, even though we're kind of using it as the basis for this video, really is only kind of painting things to a very narrow perspective. And I'm about to share my personal opinion on what I think about American democracy and how I view it going forward. Shocker, I am very worried about it too. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the reasons that this article is specifically listing. It doesn't really have everything to do with, you know, the riot at the Capitol or, you know, the constant claims of fraudulent elections and everything like that, right? So this is kind of, I guess, just my personal perspective on everything here. I mean, I've obviously lived in the United States my entire life. I was born and raised here. And I feel honestly kind of like I live in a completely different country than I did when I was growing up. Now, 9/11, I think, was such a major stepping stone for our country in a lot of ways, obviously. I mean, it's very historically proven that that's the case, but I really think 9/11 fucked this country up a lot more than most Americans really want to admit it, man. I think that the reality is my entire life would have been completely different if 9/11 didn't happen. Growing up in this country, I have seen only a few months now of my entire life where the United States was not engulfed in wars across the planet. For my entire life, basically, the United States has been going through these periods of, you know, rapid economic growth and then this massive fucking fall. You know, I was born, a few years later, the dot-com bubble burst. All hell broke loose on Wall Street for a little bit. Everything kind of calmed back down. 2008, 2009, the financial crisis happens. The Great Recession happens. Kids my age were watching their parents lose their fucking homes. We're living in literally motels and fucking, you know, the Best Westerns and things like that, or with family members if they were lucky enough. Right as I reach out into adulthood, we go through this massive global pandemic that has killed about, I think, 800,000 or 900,000 Americans at this point in just a few years. The economy collapsed again during that, and then, you know, now as we're trying to climb out of this pandemic and out of this economic wasteland that we were in, there's the constant looming threat now that war could break out into a World War III at any fucking minute. If China ever decides that they want to start marching across to Taiwan, we're gonna see a fucking global war break out when that happens, and there's even the chance that America somehow gets roped into conflict if Russia decides to step in and invade Ukraine. Throughout my entire life, this country has been going through so much political uncertainty, so much economic uncertainty, to the point that my generation has grown up in complete fucking uncertainty. And there's no clarity in this country because the people that we elect to provide us with clarity, the elected officials, our representatives, our congressmen and women, our presidents, these people, instead of acting in the best interest of the general population, are purchased by lobbyists and by massive corporations in the pharmaceutical industry and the oil industry and the weapons manufacturing industry and the military-industrial complex and special interest groups and super PACs and all this other shit. And instead of doing things that we actually need, they have instead been lining their fucking pockets through insider trading and all of this other bullshit. So you can't really look to the politicians for clarity. You can't look to your elected officials for any certainty in this time. Because the truth of the matter is they're like 95% responsible for most of the bullshit that's even been going on in the first place. So who else can you look forward to, right? Who else can you look to in the time of uncertainty? Well, you can't trust the media anymore. You can't trust the news to provide you with accurate information about what's happening. You can't expect to turn on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or fucking CBS or any of them and expect to get an actual, real, legitimate story, because all of the major media outlets in the country have been consolidating into much larger corporations. And they're all bought by special interests, too. I mean, the amount of political propaganda that's fucking filtered through the American media is absolutely absurd. So you can't turn on your TV and trust the fucking broadcast anchors or anything to give you the real story. So who can you turn to in that point, right? You know, can you turn to your neighbors and trust them? Well, at this point, the country has been getting so constantly divided by these media narratives and all this other bullshit going on in this tit-for-tat, who said, who did fucking political sphere that we live in, that it's gotten to the point where it's kind of hard to trust your neighbor too, you know, because the media would have you believe that if you're a Democrat, all Republicans are racist pieces of shit who only vote for interests that serve primarily older white people and only care about themselves, which, you know, some policies that conservatives agree with or vote for, I would definitely say are fucked up and are wrong. But then if you're a Republican, you're being led to believe that every Democrat is a fucking communist straight from the Soviet Union or North Korea that's here to dismantle American democracy and take all your fucking rights away and to kill your family and to take your fucking babies from you and all this other crazy shit and just let all this crazy shit happen, basically. So pretty much both sides, unfortunately, we have two sides to the political sphere here in America, but both sides have been just completely fucking poisoned with the absolute worst of their parties. The Democrats are realistically not that different from Republicans, but They make you believe that they're progressive and that they're truly here to help you because they say shocking shit. You know, they accuse everyone of being racist or sexist or bigoted because it's an easy way to fucking make you turn and think something different about somebody. Then every time, you know, that they get the majority of office and everything after the fucking decades of promises of, we're gonna help our environment, we're gonna help poor Americans. Instead, they just fucking enact policies that do literally nothing, or if they do anything, it's the most minor change possible. So it's gotten to this point of, yeah, who can you trust, you know? Everything about America now is just so fucking divisive. And truth be told, I don't think either of the last two presidents that we've had have done anything about the divisiveness in this country. I don't think Trump was necessarily the best at bringing people together. That was pretty apparent. And Biden tries so hard to be likable, to be that guy that everyone can really look to as a unifier. But it's just really ironic to me that the Democrats picked the one candidate, or I really should say the two candidates, because Kamala Harris is also guilty of a lot of this shit too, the two probably most racist candidates they could have. Yes, I'm going to insert a comment about the 1994 crime bill that Biden was a huge fan of that has disproportionately targeted people of color and their communities, and Kamala Harris has been known for her ridiculous oversteps during the fucking judicial processes and the legal processes when she's been in government. She's about as evil as fucking evil gets. And our entire country's political system now has been, like, kind of based down on two statements. Either you vote Democrat because you're not racist and you're not a bad person, or you vote for Republicans because you love America and hate the communists. And instead of having leadership and people in this country actually try to reunify people and bring people together and actually identify us as Americans again, we kind of just live in a society that propagates the same two fucking opinions over and over again. I mean, people literally get shamed if they don't vote for the two major ticket candidates in the elections. If you vote third party, you're told that you're wasting your vote and that you're a fucking moron. Meanwhile, these two parties that these people are fucking in love with are literally playing American Idol on the national stage. So you want to know why I am worried about American democracy? Because nobody in this country can tell what's real and what's bullshit anymore. Americans have been spoon-fed so much garbage in this country, have been fucking so full of shit for the last, God knows how long, to be honest. God knows how long this country really has just been fucking hydroplaning and hoping they can keep the wheels a little straight. But it's really all starting to kind of come to a head. You know what I mean? Within the next 30 to 40 years, we're really going to see that American resolve and whether or not it really fucking existed in the first place. Because we've gotten to this point of, I honestly think there's no return from this. I mean, this is the American crisis in and of itself. I think we're either going to see this country fall apart in the next 50 years, or it's going to finally solidify itself for a good future. Honestly, I'm unfortunately leaning towards the fall apart, because it honestly seems like most Americans don't give a shit about getting back to that point of unity. It honestly seems like most Americans are just too fucking blinded by what they've been told and what they've been spoon-fed by all these different political parties, mainstream media outlets and everything over the God knows how long now. And I'm not here to tell you, oh, don't trust the media, don't trust the mainstream media. Some of it is verifiable reporting, but unfortunately a very good amount, if not the vast majority of it now, is just complete horseshit. And a lot of the actions that politicians take are simply just distractions and detours away from the real problems. So when I see articles like this, you know, it does make me think, what is happening to American democracy? Well, the Russians are supposedly interfering, so people don't believe in it because of that. You know, Republicans don't believe in it because they think Biden got the fraudulent election. There's just so much shit going on, and while Americans sit here and continue to pick each other apart and fucking hit each other even harder to the point, you know, that we're basically collapsing our country for the enemy, it's only a matter of time before the real crisis comes along, aka China stepping over the sea into fucking Taiwan, before we have to realize, oh shit, did they win? Did they fucking make America fall apart? Who knows? Hopefully we never get to that point, but that's my personal perspective on it. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about democracy and signing out.